Animated films have an extra hurdle to overcome when held under the critical eye. Not only does the story have to keep the audience engaged, but the animation itself must be used more meaningfully and artistically in tandem with the story. Studio Ghibli films, at their best, seem to have been animated almost before the story was even invented. The animation is so vivid and the scenes so realized, the story almost seems to have been created as a result of the beautiful images crossing the screen. Each frame is crafted to further propel the themes and messages of the movie. Howl's Moving Castle, sadly, is not Studio Ghibli at their best. Hayao Miyazaki took over production of the film halfway through, and the cohesion and care often attributed to Ghibli films feels a little absent in this production. The animation is as brilliant as ever, and is reminiscent of the studio's best output, but the story actually feels like an afterthought this time. The moral ambiguity and immense depth of the most realized Ghibli characters are traded in for stereotypes and tropes. The film is a wonder to look at, but that wonder doesn't stay after the camera stops rolling. The film follows Sophie after she is transformed by the Wicked Witch of the Wastes from a young girl into an old crone. Sophie must then find the wizard Howl and hope he can help her return to normal. Meanwhile, the kingdom is in the midst of a war. The prince in a neighboring kingdom has been lost and a magical war is being sieged, causing innocents and bystanders to suffer the consequences. Unlike other Ghibli epics like Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle's multiple plotlines don't often interact. Sophie's quest to return to normal and become a young girl again does not often seem to engage with the warring kingdoms. Her only role is to assist Howl, who is running from the government. She seems like a hapless bystander and eliminates much of the initiative and motivation of an average Ghibli protagonist. This problem is only further exacerbated by the lack of resolution to questions presented in the film. The world of Howl's Moving Castle, like many Ghibli worlds, is filled with mystery and strange details to make the audience question. However, those questions are left dangling for the most part. You have to fill in the blanks to many of the questions raised at the beginning, and it leaves a bitter taste in your mouth after such a beautifully rendered world was put forth. But despite being a weaker Ghibli film, Howl's Moving Castle is still a classic example of animation being the most important part of an animated film. Despite the story and characters lacking overall, the imagery and visual magic throughout the film is as spectacular as any Ghibli has put forth. This film came off the heels of Spirited Away, and the visual splendor associated with that movie reaches its peak in Howl's Moving Castle. Howl's Moving Castle could have used a few more rewrites before finally resulting in the film we have today. If the story could match the images on screen, Howl's would be talked about in the same conversation as Spirited Away, Beauty and the Beast, and Snow White as some of the greatest animated films of all time. But instead, we get a beautiful, but overall forgettable addition to the animated canon.